and welcome back to another edition of the PDPreps podcast. What is this, Keenan? Episode 9 we're at now?
Week 9, man. It's already week 9. This is
Nine.
flying by this season. I'm gonna miss doing these with you if we stop. I hope we don't stop, but yeah, it's already week 9. Can you believe it?
We still got a few more, at least another month of the season, but yeah, it's flying by here. Anyway, I am Gus Moore, sports reporter with the Press Democrat. That is Keenan O'Doherty, my colleague and co-host. We're coming to you October 18th, previewing week 9 of the high school football season in Sonoma County, taking a look back at week 8, reviewing some of those results, looking at our rankings, going through some of our predictions. A whole lot coming your way in this week's show. But Keenan, before we get going, I'm going to surprise you with our little opening here. You have some news, my friend.
Oh, Gus, we're starting off like that. Oh man. All right. Sure. I mean, I guess so. I mean, we how do I say it? On Sunday, 2 days ago. We're recording this on Tuesday. I am engaged. I got engaged, so I'm off the market, I guess, as they say. I had a feeling we would talk about this on the pod today, but I didn't know if you would actually follow through with it.
Come on.
But yeah, so in typical Gus fashion, just springs it on me without saying too much. But yeah, no. So
I wanted to get you.
but yeah, so I guess my fiance now. That's still getting weird to say, but I'm so used to saying girlfriend for all these years. But yeah, after 5.5 so years, we're engaged now, and it's exciting time. But here comes the fun stuff. So yeah, appreciate you. I actually posted it on Twitter as well, so a lot of people do know about it. But I got a lot more response than I thought. So thank you all for all the kind words and everything. And I'm glad Gus classified this as breaking news.
I did. It was very important.
So yeah,
I would have scooped you if you had told me beforehand, just so you know. So
yeah, okay. So yeah, that's kind of the big news. It's very, very humbling with all the response we've got. So thank you everybody if you've been watching and listening to these. We appreciate it. But yeah, anyways, enough about me. Let's get back into some week 8 results here, Gus.
Yeah. Sorry, kid. I had to do that to you, but no, congrats, man. Really cool. Yeah. So congrats to you and your fiance. So don't schedule that wedding for football season though, because we need you. So like Carrie said.
I don't know Carrie.
All right. Well, let's get right into week 8. Keenan, I'm going to throw it back to you because our game of the week lived up to the billing. Windsor takes down Rancho Cotati, our season-long #1 overall team. Final score was 34-30. Windsor knocks off Rancho Cotati. Takes, I guess now I'm tied for first in the MBL Oak. Rancho is going to probably have to win out here. They have a big game coming up this week against Newman to kind of be in the conversation. We could have another tiebreaker situation like we did last year. But you were at the game. First game for Rancho Cotati without quarterback Liam Keeney, still recovering from that, pretty bad head injury he got a few weeks ago. But yeah, what were your thoughts and takeaways from that game, Keenan?
Well, yeah, but before I start with the game, I think you just hit the nail on the head. Perfect. I think with those top 3 teams, especially in the NBL Oak, it was going to come down to whoever loses that one game, possibly. And obviously the season's not over because some things could be in play. Obviously if Newman and Windsor end up losing at least one, possibly a tiebreak could be in play. Who knows, Gus? Well, I mean, we're pretty much, but it's like we said last week. Things got interesting. Things got very interesting. But this, I think, honestly, this is kind of the game you would have loved to see as a football fan, and that we kind of expected. 2 great teams going at it. Coaches throwing out the playbook, just throwing out all the stops. Hayden Anderson started out at quarterback for the Jaguars and ran the ball for the first 5 plays. But I think the key here was the run game on both sides. Potu Hale went off, 3 touchdowns, but then Max McFerrin
Windsor,
Max
yeah.
McFerrin, who was kind of stepping in because their starting running back Wyatt Morso only got like one carry in it, but he was injured. So McFerrin and Ricky Campos kind of took a share of the carries, and I guess Max kind of, pun intended here, but ran away with it. He ran for 4 touchdowns. That kid is fast, and I think the main difference here was the type of running both teams were doing. Potu Hale found a lot of holes up the middle, and just did what he does. Gus, you've been watching him for a while. He's a bruiser. Doesn't look like one, but that dude can run the rock. But what Windsor was doing, which was really to their benefit, was bouncing out to the outside a lot more often because they didn't want to run it up through the big boys up front with Rancho, Malik Cleveland, those guys, and a lot of what Rancho does on the line is pinch, so it was a lot easier for Windsor to use that speed on the outside. Um, but yeah, Windsor was down 30-28 in the fourth quarter, and then a key play was a double reverse. Hayden Anderson ended up flipping it to, I believe it was Gunnar Erickson or Max, and wide open seam on the outside there. But Rancho got the ball back. It was 4th and 10. Jacob Pruitt, who I'm going to talk about in a quick sec, laser beam 4th and 10 dart to Cy Vadrale, who caught it midair, ended up falling down. And this is kind of where things got tricky, because it looked like Cy was down from my angle. Obviously, I didn't have the best angle. Gus, you were watching it on the live stream, but it looked like he was down. Ball came out. Abel Cavillo from Rancho ended up pouncing on it because they thought it was a fumble. Refs ruled it incomplete. Turnover on downs, and Windsor ended up that was like with a minute and a half left, and Windsor ended up holding on and stuff. But man, that the atmosphere was just electrifying. I mean, you could tell Rancho was just playing with another gear, and I honestly think Rancho is going to be fine. Jacob Pruitt, for his first varsity start, had a rushing touchdown where he used that speed we've been talking about and just ended up bowling some dude over at the goal line. So I know his father Ann is very proud of that. Hey Ann, but I think they're going to be just fine with Jacob Pruitt at quarterback. I think he obviously does a little more running than Liam Keeney did. But that dude is so fast, man.
Yeah.
And he's got a good arm to go with it. So yeah.
Yeah, we haven't seen Pruitt really at all much at quarterback. I know he came in some sparingly, some spots last season, when Rancho was up big, but we haven't really seen a lot of him at quarterback. So this is kind of the first time he's really kind of stepped into that limelight. So yeah, but if you're not familiar with him, he's also the 100 and 200 champion here in the Redwood Empire. So he's a crazy good athlete, but it's good to hear that he has an arm too. Like that was kind of one of my, I guess, question marks was like, I know he's fast and a good athlete, but like, quarterback, got to be able to throw the ball too, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And one more play I forgot to mention that was super key was 4th and 5 for Windsor. Hayden Anderson takes the ball, bounces it out to the right outside, and was taken off with it. Flag flew. Okay, so it's going to be holding on Windsor, but then as Hayden kept running, he ended up having a clear shot to the end zone. But as he kept running, his helmet got ripped off. Oh. So that's a face mask. So offsetting penalties. So instead of Rancho getting that penalty and Windsor having like a 4th and 10 or 4th and 11, whatever, offsetting penalties, Windsor had another 4th and 5.
Was that also fourth quarter?
Yep. Oh yeah, that was Windsor's second to last or last possession.
Okay. So another key.
Yeah, that was key down the stretch. So yeah. But anyways, yeah, going forward with both teams, it's going to be interesting because if Windsor can keep up this momentum, obviously a big win against our number one team in the rankings, and we'll get to our rankings later on in the episode, but a big win, can they keep this one up? We've seen teams this season have that big win, but then kind of have that letdown game. And we'll talk about that in a sec. But for Rancho, Coach O'Tailing was talking to me after the game, and he was just like, look, man, I mean, it was a great game. We'll be fine. But we just had some self-inflicted things. And So I think Rancho is going to be fine going forward. They just have to keep doing what they're doing, nose to the ground. I don't think they have to worry about the rankings or anything. Not that they did before, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And I think obviously this next test for Rancho will be a good telltale.
Big time. Yeah, Rancho Newman this week is going to be our game of the week. I'll be heading out to Rancho tonight. Again, it's Tuesday to do some interviews and our 100-yard walk actually with Jacob Pruitt. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be a big game for Rancho. I mean, again, if a loss for Rancho probably takes them out of contention for the NCL or for the NBL title here. And then, yeah, it kind of puts Windsor and Newman on a collision course for that November 4th finale. So, yeah, but then again, if Rancho can kind of come back and beat Newman, then it's looking like we could have a 3-team race potentially, which is kind of how we thought it would be and how it was last year. And again, last year it came down to the final, like literally the final play of the final game, where Rancho, held on to beat Windsor. So I think we're heading towards another exciting finish for this one, or for this season in the NBL Oak. So yeah, I mean, again, Newman Rancho, stay tuned for that one. We'll have some more coverage and preview content coming for that. Last thing,
yeah, and I think this is obviously we knew this was going to be a tough stretch for Rancho. 2 straight away games, Windsor and Newman. Kind of the luck of the draw, I guess. But yeah, just going off what you were saying there, tough test.
Totally. Yep. All right. Moving on to Newman, our number. Well, actually, we'll get to that later. But Newman 48-13 over Annalee. Them and Windsor are now tied for first in the NBL Oak. Kind of a close game in the first half. It's only 14-7. Newman was driving at Annalee's goal line, I think, late in the second quarter. Annalee actually got a goal line stop against Newman, stopped Santino Acevedo in his tracks pretty much. And it was like, holy cow, hey, if Annalee comes back here and scores, we have a tie game at halftime. This could be interesting. Well, the first play of Annalee's next drive, they fumble, give the ball back to Newman. Newman scores the first play. And then from there, it's kind of a runaway for the Cardinals. But yeah, I mean, Newman's kind of rolling right now. That we should also mention too, their loss against St. Mary's a couple weeks ago. St. Mary's turned around and then beat De La Salle, which, again, if you're familiar with, huge win. I mean, again, if you're familiar with high school football, just in California even, De La Salle is one of the best programs in the entire state. They maybe this could be a down year for them, but still, this is like the first time they've lost to a team from Northern California in like a long time.
It was like a solid 10-point win too.
It was. So I think that loss, I mean, again, a 2-score loss for Newman against St. Mary's, and Newman did not play well in that game. I mean, you were there, and I think St. Mary's wasn't also quite at full strength, but still, a 2-touchdown loss to a team that went on to then beat De La Salle. I think like it's funny to say that Newman, which has been our number 2 team all season in our rankings, has been underrated, but I kind of think they have been. Like, this has been one of those weird little seasons where it's like, we weren't quite sure what they had. We knew that Santino was good. Interesting to kind of see what they have with, in the second year of, head coach, Richard Sanchez. They have a new quarterback, but they're really starting to click right now, which is bad news for teams in the NBL. Matthew Hilden, quietly having a very, very nice season, coming off, against Annalee, 13 of 22, 179 yards, 4 touchdowns, season high in touchdowns. I'm pretty sure he might have had 4 touchdowns in another game, but he's having a great season so far. About a 50% completion rate, but 17 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. I mean, last 3 games, he's 582 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, no picks. And again, that's, St. Mary's is also in that mix too. So Newman is kind of rolling right now, and Santino, again, back from injury, is huge. He had 189 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns in that one too. So he's picked up right where he left off. He had a great game in his return against Montgomery, like last week or 2 weeks ago. So they're starting to build some momentum here, which is huge going into this Rancho Cotati game this week. And so we'll kind of get to our predictions and our preview of that game in a bit. But yeah, I was, again, I had the live stream on, so, I wasn't there in person, but seeing kind of that big swing there from, in that second quarter, and then just Newman just kind of running away with it. And it's funny too, because even, when I called, Sanchez after the game for the, to write my roundup story, he's like, we're still so heavily penalized. He's like, we must lead the nation in penalties at this point. And I just kind of
I love Sanchez, man.
that was a funny line, but I mean, it's true. But I think that's also scary, where it's like Newman can't stop shooting themselves in the foot, and yet they're still killing teams around here. So, I think they are starting to put it together on the field, and then once they kind of do start to clean up some of those mess ups and mistakes, they're going to be really dangerous going forward. So, yeah, and then they've also had some guys step up too. I mean, Nick Air, who you did your 100-yard walk with.
Nicky Air, my guy.
Nicky Air, man, defensive stud, interception, fumble recovery last week, and then freshman wide receiver Jonah Bertoli, 2 touchdowns. He's up to 4 on the season now, so kind of up and coming riser guy for Newman as well. So. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of all of my notes on that game, Keenan. I know you weren't I know that you were focused on Rancho Windsor, but I don't know, any just takeaways, I guess, from that win, just on paper.
Yeah, I think obviously good one from Newman. I think regarding on Annalie's side, against these top teams, we're kind of being shown a little bit and being shown a little bit that Annalee plays it pretty close early on, but then I guess kind of just runs out of gas. I guess I know they have some injuries. I know they're suffering through some things, but they obviously just don't have the depth that some of these big teams do. I mean, hopefully they can get some wins here. I know Montgomery is going to be a big one for them. Yeah, I mean, but other than that,
yeah, we have some. It is funny because all the headlines are the big games we have against Newman and Windsor and Rancho, but then even the second the I guess quote unquote second tier games of Annallee Montgomery, that should be a great game.
Absolutely.
Windsor Montgomery this week should be a great game. And Annallee Windsor should be all of those games should be really fun competitive games. So yeah, I mean, with Annallee too, it's I was talking with with their co-assistant coach Jared Brown. I'm just texting with him after the game, and I kind of made some comment of how it's crazy how many good sub 500 teams we have in this area. Maria Carrillo's under 500, Annalee's now under 500. Just some teams like this where it's just because of the competition that they have to play in league is pretty crazy. So I'd say if Annallee can pull a few more wins here and hang on to a decent spot for the playoffs, I think that they could pull off an upset or two maybe and make a bit of a run. So I think they're kind of one of these classic teams that's better than the record indicates. So
especially if they stay healthy, yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and then this week I believe they're playing Santa Rosa. So it could be a good chance for them to snap a little skid that they're on here. So no offense to Roy. Sorry about that.
Love you, Roy.
Love you, Roy. All right, moving on. Game that you were at on Saturday. St. Vincent holds on to beat St. Bernard's 35-24. Close game at half, it looked like, and then St. Vincent kind of pulled away.
Yeah, so this was a much needed game for St. Vincent. Obviously, you and I have been following them all season long, and they've been kind of blowing teams out left and right. They've had a really strong start to the season. This is kind of a game they needed. They needed to face some adversity a little bit, and Trent Herzog was more than willing to admit that. And he knows that this was a great game to kind of face that adversity. Obviously, St. Bernard's coming in, not the same St. Bernard's team. In the first game, they had 3 or 4 transfers that were all on the line. Plus, they had one of their big playmakers back.
We should note too, this is the second time that St. Vincent and St. Bernard's have played this year. They opened the season against each other, and then I guess they scheduled 2 games, which I know is a little odd, but anyway, it worked out on their schedule. But anyway,
yeah. Quarterback for the Crusaders, Drew Sizemore had a fun time running the ball behind that new line. So yeah, it was a solid game, and I think obviously this is going to look a lot better on St. Vincent's record because they beat a team twice in a row, but then they also beat a team with a lot new blood coming in. But Kai Hall, 14 carries, 168 yards, 2 TDs. Jared Bosarge, 166 yards rushing and 3 TDs, but 2 of those 3 rushing touchdowns, but 2 of those touchdowns came on passing plays. So they both had a great game. They're becoming they're slowly becoming one of the best duos in the area. That best duos had to offer. But I think this is a great telltale sign of where St. Vincent is at. Talked to offensive lineman Cam Vaughn after the game, and he was like, this just reminds us that we're not untouchable, and that we're gonna have to keep doing this. One thing to note about St. Vincent is they had like 120 yards in penalties. They've had their penalty problems throughout the season, and that's not gonna bode you well come playoff time or anything like that. But this was a great game for St. Vincent, kind of to face before they go up to Ukiah in a huge league match. I mean, we both know how big that is. But yeah, it was good to go back, good to go see St. Vincent. You were on your one match ban because you picked against St. Vincent too many times. So
I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson.
yeah, learn your lesson. But so yeah, it was a good one for St. Vincent. Definitely good for them to face a little adversity, and hopefully this bodes them well going forward.
Yeah, 7-0 now for the first time since 2008 is St. Vincent, which was the last time they won an NCS title prior to last season, obviously, when they won Division 7. I think they won Division 5 that year in 2008. So, yeah, one of their best starts in the last, couple of decades for sure. Yeah, and then like you said, big one coming up in Ukiah this week. Both of those teams are tied for first right now in the NBL Redwood. Yeah, and so I think you had even said too that St. Vincent head coach Trent Herzog had called this one a championship game coming up on Friday because Maria Carrillo could also do some stuff kind of late, and who knows what could happen kind of the rest of the way for any of these teams. But at the moment, it's looking like St. Vincent and Ukiah are kind of the two top teams right now in the league.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. It's gonna be fascinating the way these league races come down to the wire. But interesting thing though about St. Vincent is their home game against Healdsburg, I think in a couple weeks. It's actually going to be a Friday night game in Petaluma. They're bringing like portable lights in, so I think that's so I think that's pretty interesting considering they have no lights on that field. But yeah, so good win for the Mustangs. They just keep on rolling. But obviously we'll see what happens this week.
No doubt. All right, moving on. A couple more games here that we'll touch on, and then we'll dive into some week 9 stuff. But yeah, kind of a bunch of blowouts this week. We kind of touched on. Two of the 3 games that we touched on so far were 2 games decided by less than 20 points, which I think out of like the 9 games there were, I think only 3 were decided by less than 20. So a bunch of crooked scores this week. One of which was Petaluma 42, Sonoma Valley 0. I think it's the 3rd or 4th straight loss for Sonoma Valley. But again, we knew that VVAL was going to be tough for them. And yeah, again, they're a smaller team, younger team. I think they only dressed something like 25 guys for this game. So I know Petaluma is even dealing with some numbers issues too. But another great win for Petaluma. Just took care of business. 4th straight win for them. 6-1 now. I think they're 3-0 in the VVAL. So they're actually number 1 now too, because again, Vintage has 1 loss. That was to Petaluma. American Canyon lost to Vintage last week. And those are kind of the top 3 teams right now. So
the VVAL is kind of a mess.
It's just all over the place. It really is. But again, I think that this is now 3. All 3 of our league, actually, even all 4 of our leagues, if we include the NCL 1 in here too, like all of these leagues could come down to the last couple weeks of the season for nobody's running away with the league title this year in any.
Just how races. We like it though, Gus.
Just how we like it, exactly. So yeah, again, workmanlike effort for Silas Paula-Georges again, 178 rushing yards for the Petaluma running back, 3 touchdowns. Again, he's having an insane season, 5th game over 100 yards this year. He's averaging 10 yards a carry, which is for the season, which is just stupid. Like, I don't know what other word you could use. I don't know what other word you could use to describe that, but 941 rushing yards on 91 carries this year, 10 rushing touchdowns, and he has a receiving touchdown, and he has an interception return for a touchdown, and he's a great kick returner. This guy can just do it all for Petaluma.
Swiss Army knife.
Total Swiss Army knife. He's a beast. And then also too, you'll see it during track season. He's also a great runner too. Really good sprinter. So anyway, also Petaluma quarterback Henry Ellis returned. He's missed the last couple games with a shoulder injury. He didn't throw a ton, only 6 passes, but he completed 4 of them for 45 yards with a touchdown. Didn't do much running. They're kind of gonna, they're still working him back. I guess he still has a little bit of pain in his shoulder. I don't know if wasn't quite sure if it was like a structural thing, or if it's just pain management, or kind of what the injury is right now. But he's still kind of working his way back from that. But they're not really running him in any of their running sets. It's just kind of more of game management. Stay in the pocket, make some throws, kind of thing. So if they don't, and again, they don't really need him to do a lot of running right now, just with how Silas and then guys like Chase Miller and Ed Burgess are also running the ball. So they have options. They don't they'll keep Henry healthy, but they have some this week they have a good tune-up game against Napa, and then they finish out with Casa and the American Canyon, which again, like we said, those last couple of games could also be big in deciding the the VVAL title. So
Yep.
Any other notes on this game, Keenan? I don't have a ton else to say.
No, not really. I think just regarding Silas's numbers again, I mean everybody people would expect like Santino and those guys and Kai Hall to put up those kind of numbers, but Silas is like flying under the radar a little bit, and definitely exceeding expectations. So yep.
All right,
go for it.
3 other games we'll touch on here, and then we'll move on to week 9 stuff. But Murray Carrillo, 33-12, good bounce back win after that Ukiah loss, tied at 12 at half, and then Carrillo came out of the half and scored 3 touchdowns in the third, pulled away. Career win number 100 from Rio Carrillo head coach Jay Higgins, who going back, that's our again 2 weeks now. I mean, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, Trent Herzog over at St. Vincent, and now we got Jay Higgins. So some pretty talented coaches we have in this area. So I mean, Higgins, longest tenured coach in the NBL, always been around. He's been at Korea since 2001. I mean, that's crazy. 21, 22 seasons, coaching high school is impressive at one place, no less. So Korea has kind of been going through it the last couple of weeks. They lost that big game against Ukiah last week. They got shut out 14-0. And I found out that they have a ton of injuries right now. They actually lost Sam Mortimer, who was one of their top runners, lost him to a knee injury. Yeah, big time loss for them. Sounds like he might be out for the year. And then Reed Sherman, who is kind of one of their other top backs, he broke his collarbone. He broke his collarbone last week, and he actually scored a touchdown. And then when he fell, he broke his collarbone, and he's probably done for the year. So, and then also Sam Lawson, who was those are kind of their big 3, running backs. Lawson has also missed the last couple of games with I guess a shoulder injury too or something, but. I think that one's more minor, so he's coming back. But I mean, it's crazy that
so their entire running back carousel sound
literally, yeah.
Oh no.
And that's what Higgins kind of said. He's like, I haven't had a healthy backfield since week 1, and I'm like, man, okay. So, but even not at full strength, I think Carrillo has put together some really impressive results this week, and we were definitely kind of looking at that halftime score of 12-12, what's going on over there, Carrillo, and then. Yeah, they whatever Higgins said at halftime must have worked because they came out of the half fired up and pulled away. So, good win for Carrillo. But again, that loss to Ukiah, they kind of need Ukiah, I guess. Or they, I mean, again, this is kind of where we're at with the NBL Redwood race too, where Carrillo, again, Carrillo has 1 league loss, but they end the season against St. Vincent. St. Vincent and Ukiah play each other this week. One of those teams will come away with 1 loss. So. There's a lot that could still be decided. Korea's not out of it yet.
No one's really out of it.
No one's really out of it yet. That's true. None of those top teams are really out of it yet. But so we'll see coming down the stretch. What this looks like. But Korea plays Healdsburg this week. So and then a quick note on Piner too. But I saw some comments being like, Piner played really hard. And they had a lot of heart and a lot of fight. And I guess they only dressed 17 players for that game, which. Oh, it's tough. Again, a school of that size, and I know they haven't been great at football the last couple of years, but yeah, it's just hard to see, when schools like that just going to drop numbers, and I think they were at mid-20s when they started the year too or something. So.
Oh yeah, no, they had some numbers when I went out there and interviewed preseason, but still, nonetheless, heck of an effort with 17 players. I mean, tied 12-12 at halftime. So good on the prospectors, but Gus. If we thought the NBL was in chaos and the VVAL was in chaos, boy, wait till we talk about the NCL1, Gus. This is just a mess.
Yeah, it's small school chaos at its finest here. North Central League 1 action got a little wild last week. Man, so it was looking like a pretty clear-cut race. Clear Lake, Willits, Cloverdale, St. Helena, kind of all in the mix there. And now all of a sudden, Clear Lake beats St. Helena, Middletown beats Willits, Kelseyville beats Cloverdale. So we, at the moment, how things stand, Clear Lake is at the top of the league. I believe they're 4-0. I don't have the standings pulled up right here. Let me do that real quick. I believe they're 4-0, and then I believe that it's Middletown and Clear Lake who are both tied for second right now. I want to say at 3-1. So, kind of a letdown loss though for Cloverdale. I mean, they were coming off of, again, two consecutive wins over Willits and St. Helena. Two teams that, again, were expected to be kind of up in that upper echelon, and then Kelseyville came in with one win on the season. And it sounds like Cloverdale's D just did not make the trip up to Kelseyville with them. It was like tons of scoring on scoring on scoring. And then even late they had, Cloverdale, I think, was trailing by, it was like 46-41. Cloverdale just had to hold them. They'd get the ball back, chance to win the game, and they just couldn't hold them. And Kelseyville scored and, pulled away at the end. But yeah, weird kind of, it's just things are shaking out very, very interestingly over in the NCL one. And that kind of leads us into a huge game for Middletown, or for Cloverdale this week, playing against Middletown. And again, two teams tied for second place right now in league. And Cloverdale still has to play Clear Lake at the end of the year, and I believe Middletown also does too. Let me check their schedule right now. Yeah. No, they already played them, so they lost pretty badly. So, yeah, I mean, again, this is just a big game for both teams. Cloverdale especially. If they want a chance at winning an NCL title. I mean, first one, I think it's since like 2007. I want to say off the top of my head. They have to win this game this week against Middletown. So
yeah,
just kind of a letdown spot. It happens. Two big emotional wins for them. And yeah, on we go into Middletown this week. But and then I guess we'll kind of wrap up here with on our week 8 kind of recap with some eight person action. Rosa University Prep smacks Round Valley 46-6. A game that we both got wrong in our predictions.
Very
wrong. We saw Round Valley had some pretty strong results, and we like RUP again, still a building program, and Rosen Prep came out fired up and handed it to them. So second win of the year for Rosen Prep. Again, this is a program that started in 2018. The only other season that they had 2 wins, one of them was a forfeit, so they have 2 very legit wins this year. So again, a very big milestone for a building program. And if they can beat Anderson Valley this week, they might have a pretty good chance at making the playoffs. I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna have to double check on kind of some of those eight man playoff situations. But yeah, REP, good dub for them, and we're looking at maybe writing a story about them pretty soon about kind of their young program kind of on the rise here. So
no doubt. I apologize for hustling. Good for them. But yeah, that kind of wraps up our week 8. We're going to look ahead to week 9. Now we're going to start with our rankings. Gus, we had some conversations about this one because of how things shaped up, but we have Windsor 1, Cardinal Newman 2, Rancho Cotati 3, St. Vincent 4, Petaluma 5. On the bubble, we got Annalee, Montgomery, Ukiah, Maria Carrillo, Casa Grande, Cloverdale. Obviously, Gus, the big thing here is Windsor and Rancho flipping spots. Rancho now the third ranked team, and Windsor goes up to number 1.
New number 1 for the first time this year. Yeah, great. I mean, again, I think if you beat the number 1 team, you deserve to take the number 1 spot. So, congrats to Windsor for doing that. And some people might say, "Oh, Rancho dropping below Newman, up in arms, whatever." But I don't know. I think, like we kind of talked about earlier, I think that Newman has put together quietly a very, very good resume this year. And again, that loss against St. Mary's is looking better and better as the season goes on. So, we actually even had some debate about considering putting Newman and Rancho tied for second.
Yeah.
We felt that was kind of a cop-out move. But again, these two teams are playing each other this week, so I guess the hierarchy will become more clear after this week. So I think it really could have gone either way, but I do think that, again, Windsor deserves to be at number 1. And Newman at Rancho really could have gone either way, but yeah, I guess again, we will find out this week, which team deserves to be at 2 and which team deserves to be at 3. So yeah, and then St. Vincent's still at 4. They're still chugging along. Petaluma is still at 5. They're still chugging along. And then yeah, the bubble hasn't really changed much either. So I don't think there's much more to touch on for our rankings this week.
Nope, I don't think so. Let's get into our game of the week preview. Cardinal Newman versus Rancho Cotati in Santa Rosa. Gus, you will be at that game. Talk to me.
Yeah, so just kind of getting the ball rolling on some preview stuff this week. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of one of those historical matchups that has kind of, this has been kind of the matchup in Sonoma County for the last, I want to say, 10 years. I mean, probably even farther back than that, but it's just in the last 10 years, it's been really kind of, back and forth. And, Windsor's kind of jumped in that mix here too in the last couple of years, but when it comes to Sonoma County upper echelon football, this is what people, come to see and talk about. So, and it's interesting too, because, last year, obviously, Rancho beat Cardinal Newman 1917. It was a close game until the end. That was coming off of the Cardinal Newman Windsor COVID game cancellation. I think Newman was missing a few players, but it was still a very close game, and it came down to, I think, the last couple of plays. But that was the first time that Rancho has actually beaten Newman since 2017. So it has been a while, and I think that 2017 game, if I'm remembering correctly, I think that oh yeah, I think that was the game that was, I believe that was the first game after the Tubbs fire, I want to say. I think it was. Yeah, it was. That 41-28 loss that they had was that makeup game on a Monday. That was the first game that Newman had played after their school had burned down in 2017. So historically, Newman has kind of owned this matchup. I mean, even going back to like 2000, like the last actual win that wasn't on a weird kind of game like that came back in 2014, it looks like, and that was by one score. So historically, last couple seasons at least, this game has been a game that Newman has kind of controlled. But I mean, again, we'll kind of see this week. I mean, again, they're at 2 and 3 in our rankings right now, and I think that they've both had very, very impressive seasons. Obviously Rancho has kind of been the talk of the area this year, and with the Keeney injury, it's like we're kind of reevaluating what they look like, but. Again, like you said, Pruitt looked really impressive. They still have a ton of talent. I mean, again, Saivat Rawali on the outside. I don't think there's a better athlete than him in the entire county. And then Potu, had a great game last week. Their line is awesome, which I think is going to be huge in this game against Newman. And then for Newman, again, it's like, can both of these teams honestly minimize their mistakes and minimize penalties and minimize, shooting themselves in the foot, which has kind of been their hallmark the last couple of seasons or the last couple of games for them, for both. And then again, can Rancho slow down Santino? They had trouble slowing down Windsor's running backs last week. Can they slow down the best back and one of if not the best backs in the area, maybe not the North Bay. And then can Hilden, kind of keep them in it and not make mistakes and manage the game well. Like, I think this is going to be a really fascinating game, and it sounds like we're going to have quite a few other outlets, who are going to be on the sidelines covering this one. So, yeah, I mean, we knew that this slate of games, this Windsor Rancho and Newman Rancho, and then again at the end of the year, Windsor Newman, these are all going to be must-watch games, and I think that this one is also kind of living up to that potential already. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you kind of think about this game? What do you see in this matchup?
No, I think you're dead on it. I mean, it is fascinating. I think the key is where they're going to run Santino, just because Rancho Cotati's bread and butter is up with those big boys up front, kind of like I talked about in the Windsor game. I mean, look, Santino has all the talent in the world to just do whatever he does, and he's proven that time and time again. It'll be interesting, because I forgot to mention this too in the Windsor Rancho Cotati roundup, but Anais Walker was on Hayden Anderson majority of the game, and Saivat Rawali kind of played in a safety role. So we'll kind of see how how their secondary lines up. I know Colonel Newman has a monster wide receiver in Zach Kelly, and Kaiser Severson is a great backup as well with some speed, and so it'll be interesting to see how Rancho Cotati really lines up with this one, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because obviously offensive they can offensively, we know what they are. I mean,
Yeah.
Jacob Pruitt put up 30 points against Windsor in his first varsity start. That's like not
Yeah.
anything to shy about. So,
Right.
yeah, where the lineups will be, I think that's the key, and that's going to be a big thing for you to watch, obviously, and yeah, so here we go, folks.
Yeah, I know we need this is going to be exciting. Yeah, it's shaping up to be that way. One other interesting note here too, but Newman also did lose a big piece of their defense last week. Zach Raya, I think I pronounced that right. Their leading tackler also has 3 sacks on the year, out for the season. I believe he has a torn MCL. So, yeah, kind of a big. I think he's a linebacker, so kind of a big loss in that secondary
Zach
spot. So.
Coleman.
No, Zach Raya.
Right,
So
yeah.
yeah, so big loss kind of in the secondary spot, but I know that they have, they're super deep at as far as their defense goes. So I think they should, it'll be a next man up mentality. But I mean, we're at week 9 of the season. Everyone's kind of beat up. People are dropping left and right. So it's just is what it is. So hopefully, again, everyone stays healthy. Yeah, and we don't see many more of these season-ending injuries because it always sucks to see, but. So I think that's all we got for our just brief preview on that. And then I guess we'll take a look at our slate of games this week. Get into our predictions. So Keenan, last week got one back on you, 8-2. You went 7-3. Yeah, I think the difference was that Windsor Rancho game. I picked Windsor, you picked Rancho. I didn't feel good about my Rancho pick or about my Windsor pick, but turned out, again, Windsor held on. Great win for them. But yeah, going through, I mean, again, we, Newman over Annalee, Montgomery over Santa Rosa, UK over Healdsburg. I mean, again, we didn't really trip up again until Cloverdale, Kelseyville, which, again, like we said, let down spot. Surprising loss. I think we both agreed, and same thing with Rosa Prep. We both picked Round Valley, and they won by 40. So
yeah.
Whoops. Anyway, again, just shows that we're not perfect in our picks, and we're it's we're sometimes bad at this. So
yeah. Well, I think we're just having fun with this as well. I obviously I don't think we've really done this before. But yeah, let's get into our week 9 predictions, shall we? Starting with our game of the week, Rancho Cotati at Cardinal Newman. This is kind of like the Windsor Rancho one. I don't think people would be upset at us if we split this one, and we have split this one. I'm going Rancho Cotati again. I'm not losing any faith in the Cougars on this one. I think this is a bounce back game for them, considering they should be a lot better, or they're a lot better than they probably thought they were going to be, with Liam Keeney out. So I'm going Rancho Cotati, but Gus, you're going with Cardinal Newman.
I think that this one could go either way. Like you kind
Again.
of said, yeah, I think that this is also a pick 'em. But just again, looking at kind of last week's game where Rancho's run defense, it really kind of was the reason why Windsor won that game. Trying to do that against Santino and guys like Kaise. That's gonna be tough. So again, I think it'll be close. I don't think this is gonna be a runaway game in either way. But again, Newman's defense has been really good this year, and their running game has been really good. And so far, those are the 2 things that I think you need to slow down Rancho. So close game, but I think Newman comes away with the win.
All right, split on that one. Windsor at Montgomery. Obviously, Gus, the key here is how Windsor responds after that big win. They're going to Montgomery. This could be a potential trap game here. Obviously, we've seen some teams come off big wins and kind of fall a little bit, but we still have the Jaguars in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Monty's coming off a big win too. Their offense finally exploded. They got off a 3-game losing streak, a good game that we did not talk about, but they beat Santa Rosa's 57-0, season high in points for them. Their offense kind of exploded, so they're coming off. I mean, again, they kind of have their mojo back. But yeah, this could also, I mean, like you said, can Windsor avoid kind of a letdown spot after a big emotional win last week? We will see, but we both have Windsor in this one. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't like. It might be a couple touchdown game. I don't know. I know that again, when Montgomery kind of gets down, it can kind of be hard for them to come back quickly. So I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I do think Windsor also comes away with a win.
Yep. Annalee at Santa Rosa is our next game up. Bounce back game for Annalee. I mean, Santa Rosa is just having a tough time in the NBL Oak so far, unfortunately. So sorry to the Panthers, but we're both going Annalee in this one.
Yeah, I don't think there's much really else you could say. Again, Santa Rosa is just kind of looked over a little overmatched in the NBL Oak. Yeah, just a couple of uglier games to open the year, and I don't think it's going to stop against Annalee. I think Annalee also has some frustration they want to let out after coming up short in two pretty big games. So I expected a lot of points to put up by Annalee in this one.
Yep, big game for the NBL Redwood. Next up, we have St. Vincent going up to Ukiah, making the big trip to Ukiah. This is a big one for the NBL Redwood. No doubt, obviously Maria Carrillo made that trip up to Ukiah and didn't fare well. But again, they have all those injuries and everything. So this is a big one. You know, Ukiah is a really hot team. We kind of touched on them a little bit. They're super hot. They're like on a five game winning streak, I want to say. Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how this one plays out. But we're both going with the Mustangs.
I have learned my lesson. I am not picking against St. Vincent. We're not doing this again. St. Vincent in this one.
Fair enough. Next one coming up, Healdsburg at Maria Carrillo. Obviously, tough season for the Greyhounds so far, but even a shorthanded Maria Carrillo, I think it's just going to be too much for Healdsburg, especially at home. I'm going with the Pumas.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Hounds, but yeah, Carrillo. I mean, again, we've talked all season about how Carrillo is better than the record indicates, and yeah, I think they get back to 500 with the winner here over Healdsburg. So yeah, Carrillo.
Carrillo indeed. All right, we're going Petaluma at Napa. Napa's obviously talked about Napa last week. They could use a Brock Bowers or someone like that. They're not having the greatest go in the VVAL. We don't see that changing right now. We're going with Petaluma, especially if Henry Ellis is slowly coming back. So Petaluma in this one.
Yeah, I mean, again, one of these games where I think just Petaluma is just a better team. They've shown it so far all throughout the season. Yeah, Napa is still kind of still kind of a building program, which is again funny that they had, probably the best college player in the country just at their school like 3 years ago, which is nuts. But yeah, I think Petaluma is just a better team. So Petaluma this one.
I agree. Cloverdale versus Middletown. If you asked us a couple weeks ago, just based on what was going on, we would have said Cloverdale easily. But this is a little bit more of a trickier decision, just judging how the NCL1 is shaping up. But we are still going with Cloverdale. We think they bounce back, especially at home against Middletown. So, yeah, Gus, going with the Eagles.
Yeah, same. But yeah, I mean, even like it is interesting because historically, I think Middletown is considered to be maybe a little down this year from what they have been in the past, which, Middletown has historically been one of these really good small school Lake County teams that, have made some pretty deep runs in the playoffs. But by all accounts, it seems like they're kind of down this year. But again, they're coming off a win over Willits, which was kind of expected to be one of the better teams this year. So I do think this is kind of also a pick 'em. I wouldn't be surprised if Middletown won. I mean, Middletown has won the last, was that 6 meetings. I mean, 4 of those were shutouts, but again, high school football is so different year to year that this Cloverdale team has looked pretty legit to me. I think that they bounce back good off of this Kelseyville loss. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think that Cloverdale bounces back and gets a win.
Yep. Same here. Okay, speaking of pick'ems, this next game on our slate is the definition of pick'em. Obviously big for the VVAL stakes here. Casa Grande at American Canyon. American Canyon coming off a loss to Vintage. I believe the score was 31-15 in that one. Obviously Casa Grande lost to Vintage a little bit worse earlier on in the season. So this is a fascinating one, Gus, because we're split on this one. It's could go either way. I have Casa Grande. I think their offense wakes up, but you have American Canyon in this one.
And I know I'm going to hear about it from head coach John Antonio, but that's I'm willing to take that heat. But no, I think that this like you said, this is also a pick 'em. I would not be surprised again if either team won this game. I think it will be close. Casa's offense has really woken up the last couple weeks. I mean, I think they struggled to score 20 I think in the 2 games prior to the Sonoma Valley and the Napa wins, but they put up 53 against Sonoma Valley and then 68 last week against Napa. So their offense is starting to roll again. They're starting to heat up at the right time. And again, American Canyon is coming off of a big loss against Vintage. And at the moment, American Canyon and Casa are tied right now for third in the VVAL at 2-1. So whoever wins this game could still be in the hunt there, especially with American Canyon and Petaluma still, or American Canyon and Casa still having to play Petaluma at the end of the season. So again, this race is nowhere near over yet. But I think the winner of this game will keep themselves in contention, and the loser is probably going to start having to prep for the playoffs if they make it. So, yeah, I think it will be close, but I do kind of want to see a little more maybe out of Casa Grande's defense, and I think American Canyon's offense has been pretty solid the last couple of weeks too. So, yeah, I think it's close, but I think American Canyon pulls it out.
Yep, I think the opposite. I think Casa Grande pulls this one out, obviously. So we're split on more than just one game this week. Sonoma Valley versus Vintage. Obviously, Vintage is, has had a rough go of it with that tough preseason schedule and then some tough VVAL games. Sonoma Valley has had an even tougher go of it this season. They just don't have the same numbers that teams like Vintage and Petaluma do. I think Vintage takes this one pretty easily. I'm sorry to the Dragons, but that's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles this year. So going with Vintage.
Yeah, I don't think there's much really else to say in this one. I mean, VVAL play was always going to be really tough for Sonoma Valley. Again, their numbers are kind of dwindling too, just injuries and whatever, football things going on. So, yeah, interesting. Also, too, I talking to doing the roundup last week, but Sonoma Valley, they're actually without their regular head coach right now. Clay Jackson actually tore his ACL like after I think the Terra Linda win in like week 2 or 3, and so they've had an interim coach this whole time, which is tough. I mean, again, there's more adversity for a team that's trying to grow and a program that's really trying to get back on track. But yeah, I was talking with their interim head coach, and he was saying that really he's like, not that they're punting on any of these games, but he's like, we're really looking at that Napa game. If we can win that game, then we can have a chance of making playoffs, which they haven't made playoffs in, I don't know, years. I'd have to go back and check, but that would be a huge milestone again for a younger program. So either way, just Vintage is the better team in this one. So Vintage.
Yep. All right. That wraps up our Friday slate. Our lone Saturday game. We're going back to 8-man football. Rosa University Prep versus Anderson Valley. Well, we both got it very wrong last week, Gus. And considering Round Valley beat Anderson Valley 62-6 in the first game of the season, we're both going Roseland in this one. We think they get on a little bit of a win streak here.
Yeah, shoot. I mean, like you said, this is REP is starting to roll a little bit. Yeah, and I think that I mean Anderson Valley 0-5, so I think that this is a dub for Roseland Prep. So I think Roseland Prep wins their 3rd game of the year, and it's funny because Max Preps has the game against Emory, which they were supposed to play last week, but then Emory, which is also a very new team, or I guess 2 weeks ago now. I always mess that up, but Emory, this is going to be like Emory's like first year like with a team in like the last like 3 or 4 years, and then they couldn't field the team. So in Max Preps it's in there as a forfeit, but it was the game technically just wasn't played, so it's not actually a forfeit. So anyway, if you're looking at Max Preps, that's the record's off there. But yeah, I mean again, just back to the game, I think that RUP takes care of business against Roseland or against Anderson Valley. So I think that does it for our week 9 slate of games. I guess kind of last things before we go here, we'll touch on a couple other sports. Big week coming up for volleyball. You are covering again Tuesday night, so by the time this comes out, the result will already be known. But tonight you were covering, what's the game? It's
Windsor Marie Carrillo.
Windsor Marie Carrillo. Top 2 teams in the NBL Oak, is that right?
I believe so. And if Windsor wins today, they clinch the outright league title. That is confirmed. So that would be huge for Windsor, especially in one of the tougher leagues in the area too. from a volleyball standpoint. So if Windsor wins, they clinch it outright. If they lose, I believe they still could clinch a share. But yeah, so again, you guys will know the result as this comes out. But another thing to touch on, Gus. This is going back to you real fast. That big meeting is tomorrow, the 19th. So make sure, Gus, if you have anything else more to say on that, but make sure you check out, look on Gus's social media and stuff because he's going to be coming out with that story too.
Yeah, Rancho Cotati meeting meeting at Rancho Cotati on Wednesday, the 19th, discussing the potential. I guess it's not even potential. It's at this point, unless something kind of like, unless there's a huge change. This is going to happen. Is the big football realignment that's coming to the North Bay here. Starting in 2024, if and when it does pass. This would not be starting next year in 2023. This would be starting for the 2024 cycle till 2028. And I think that's kind of the first cycle for it. I also have to probably amend a little reporting I did last time, or I think I had talked about at the last meeting that they had. They voted on 3 different proposals. And I guess I'll back up even farther. If you're not familiar with this whole thing, we're looking at currently combining teams from the MCAL and Marin, the VVAL, and the MBL, merging them all into one league and then breaking up to all 27 teams into 4 different leagues. So basically making 4 different leagues.
Just for football though, right?
Just for football. Thank you. Yes, just for football. So looking at essentially making 4 different leagues just for football based out of teams from these 3 leagues. So again, I've written about this before. You can go back and kind of find some of my stories on what the different proposals would look like. One thing I have to amend though is that I think I had reported that at the last meeting they had voted on 3 different proposals. I think 2 of them passed, 1 of them didn't. I thought that meant that those 2 proposals were going to be the ones that they were voting on and deciding at this meeting on Wednesday. But in fact, they're still voting on all 3. That was just it was a workshop, I guess. So that was more of like kind of a trial run, a test run. So all 3 of those proposals, which I've also written about, and you can find those again on other stories. And I think we'll even link it in, I guess, in the description of this video too. All 3 of those will be voted on, but the league will be deciding on one final proposal to send off to the North Coast Section Alignment Committee, and then the Alignment Committee will be examining that, figuring out if it works. Which again, more than likely it's also going to pass. And then by 2024, we will be looking at having 4 completely new football leagues here in the North Bay, which would be awesome. I mean, I think. There's been very mixed reaction to it. Some schools in Napa aren't a big fan of more travel, and like getting buses is tougher for some other schools, which I totally understand. But then from a lot of the small schools, especially this week after all these blowouts, the whole reason for doing this is to kind of balance out, competitive equity across the board, where there's all these blowouts and programs aren't able to build programs because kids don't want to lose by 50 every week. And so I totally get that. And so that was Sonoma Valley, Santa Rosa, like schools like that are playing kind of in leagues that are maybe just too big for them, are looking at this being like, yes, we want to do this. We want to build a program. We want to win some games. Like that's huge for kind of some of these smaller schools that are struggling right now. So anyway, stay tuned for some more coverage on that. But that should be, again, coming out on Wednesday. I'll be at the meeting at Rancho Cotati. All these schools will be there talking about it. So, and then I think we'll have some concrete stuff to report out from that meeting on Wednesday. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And I think that's kind of all we got for this week's pod. Is that about it, Keenan?
No, I think so. I think so. Again, we say this every week, but we're going to keep saying it because we really do appreciate you guys listening and watching. And if you have any feedback for us, just let us know. We'll link our social media and stuff in the description. But thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. Thanks, guys. All right, that was about an hour.
I got to pee so bad.